Men test you all the time, and most of the time, they don't even realize they're doing it. They won't announce it. They won't sit you down and say, "This is a test." No, the test shows up in the pauses, the silence, the small changes in effort, the way he pulls back just a little to see what you'll do next. And here's where most people mess it up. The first thing you need to understand is this. A man is always watching how you respond when things don't go perfectly, not when he's on his best behavior, not when he's calling every day, not when he's trying to impress you. The real test begins when he relaxes, when he gets comfortable, when he stops performing and starts observing. He might take longer to text back. He might cancel a plan. He might go quiet for a day or two. And the question he's silently asking is simple. Is she stable? Is she secure? Or does she fall apart the moment I change the rhythm? Men test your emotional stability most clearly in moments of silence, distance, because that is when masks fall and real behavior begins. When communication slows down or effort slightly changes, it is rarely random. A man often steps back to observe how you manage uncertainty, not because he wants to hurt you, but because he wants to understand how safe it feels to be himself around you. Silence becomes a mirror, reflecting whether you are rooted in your own emotional balance or leaning entirely on his presence to feel secure. This is not about manipulation as much as it is about instinct. Men are wired to assess risk, and emotional volatility feels like risk to them. When distance appears, many people interpret it as rejection and immediately try to close the gap. Messages become longer, explanations become unnecessary, and reassurance is subtly demanded rather than asked for. What the man notices in this moment is not the words being sent, but the energy behind them. He feels the pressure, the anxiety, the need to be anchored to his response. That pressure silently answers his question about emotional stability, and often not in a favorable way. Emotional steadiness is attractive because it signals maturity, resilience, and self-trust, all qualities that suggest a healthy partnership rather than an emotional responsibility. Distance tests also reveal how you handle the loss of control. You cannot control how quickly someone responds, how busy they are, or how much space they need in a given moment. What you can control is how you regulate yourself when that uncertainty appears. A man watches whether you spiral internally or whether you stay grounded in your life. He notices if your mood collapses when he is quiet, or if you continue to show up as the same person regardless of his temporary absence. Stability tells him that being with you would feel peaceful, not heavy. Silence also tests patience. In the early stages, especially, a man wants to know if you can allow things to unfold naturally without rushing emotional intimacy or forcing clarity too soon. When silence makes you uncomfortable, it often pushes you to fill it with explanations, confessions, or ultimatums. This doesn't create closeness, it creates tension. A calm response to silence, on the other hand, communicates trust in the process and confidence in your own worth. It tells him you don't need constant validation to feel okay. There is also a deeper layer to this test. Emotional stability during distance shows whether you are reacting from past wounds or present reality. If every pause triggers fear, it suggests unresolved insecurity rather than genuine concern. Men sense this quickly. They may not articulate it, but they feel the difference between someone responding to the moment and someone reacting to old pain. Stability reassures him that disagreements, stress, or life challenges won't turn into emotional chaos. What often goes unnoticed is that emotional stability does not mean emotional silence. It does not mean pretending you don't care, suppressing feelings. It means choosing timing, tone, and self-regulation over impulsive reactions. When distance persists, a stable person addresses it calmly rather than emotionally. They ask questions without accusation and express needs without desperation. This balance is rare and rarely creates value. Over time, how you handle silence shapes how a man treats you. If he learns that pulling back creates panic, he unconsciously gains power. If he learns that you remain steady and self-contained, he gains respect. Respect grows where emotional consistency lies. Distance then stops being a weapon and becomes simply a neutral space where trust either strengthens or weakens based on how it is handled. Emotional stability during silence is not something you perform for someone else. It is something you cultivate within yourself. When you know your worth, distance feels like information, not a threat. You observe rather than assume. You respond rather than react. And in doing so, you pass the test without ever realizing a test was happening. Your reaction always carries more weight than your words because reactions are unfiltered truth. Words can be chosen, rehearsed, and softened, but reactions reveal what lies beneath the surface. When a man tests you without saying a word, he is paying close attention to how quickly you respond, the emotional tone you carry, and the energy behind your behavior. He is not analyzing your sentences as much as he is absorbing your emotional state. A calm response signals control, while an explosive or anxious reaction signals instability, regardless of how reasonable your words might sound. In moments of uncertainty, reactions tend to come from instinct rather than intention. If he changes plans last minute, takes longer to reply, or shows inconsistency, the immediate response tells him everything he needs to know. Do you assume the worst or allow space for reality? Do you react from fear or from confidence? A man notices whether your first move is defensive, accusatory, or composed. Even silence can be a reaction, and he reads meaning into that too. What you do in the first moments often defines the emotional direction of the interaction. Many people believe explaining themselves will fix a situation, but over-explaining is usually a reaction rooted in anxiety. When you rush to justify your feelings or clarify your intentions, it communicates that you are seeking approval rather than standing in your truth. A man senses this immediately. He may not know why it feels off, but he feels the imbalance. Confidence does not require a long explanation. It shows up in restraint, in measured responses, and in the ability to pause before engaging. Another subtle test appears during disagreement. A man watches whether conflict turns into emotional flooding or stays grounded. Raised voices, sarcasm, emotional shutdowns, or passive aggression all reveal how someone handles pressure. Even if your words are logical, an emotional overreaction weakens the message. Calm firmness, on the other hand, strengthens it. It shows that your emotions are present, but not controlling you. That level of emotional regulation feels safe. And safety is one of the strongest attractors in any relationship. Reactions also reveal boundaries. When something bothers you, how you respond determines whether that boundary will be respected or ignored in the future. If you react with laughter to something that hurts you, the message received is permission. If you react with anger that feels out of control, the message received is unpredictability. But when you respond with calm clarity, the message is strength. A man learns how to treat you based on the emotional feedback you provide in those moments. Timing plays a major role in this keynote. Immediate reactions often come from emotion, while delayed responses tend to come from thought. A man observes whether you need to respond instantly or whether you can sit with discomfort before addressing it. That pause demonstrates self-awareness. It shows that you trust yourself enough not to rush. This kind of emotional pacing communicates maturity and depth without needing to say a word. Your reactions also influence power dynamics. When someone knows exactly how to provoke a reaction, they hold emotional power. When your reactions are measured and intentional, that power stays with you. A man senses this balance intuitively. He feels whether he can emotionally shake you or whether you remain steady regardless of circumstances. Steadiness creates respect, and respect creates attraction. The most important truth is that reactions shape patterns. One reaction repeated becomes a habit. A habit becomes a dynamic. A dynamic becomes the foundation of how you are treated. Words may start conversations, but reactions decide outcomes. When you master your reactions, you quietly pass tests you never knew were happening, because emotional control speaks louder than any explanation ever could. Consistency shows confidence and self-worth in ways that cannot be faked or forced. Anyone can appear confident for a moment, but consistency reveals who you are when no one is watching closely. When a man is observing you, he is not looking for perfection. He is looking for reliability. He wants to know whether the way you show up today will resemble the way you show up tomorrow. Emotional swings, changing standards, or shifting boundaries create confusion. And confusion weakens attraction because it signals inner uncertainty. Consistency begins with how you treat yourself. When your routine, values, and emotional tone stay steady regardless of his behavior, it sends a powerful message that your life is anchored within you. A man notices whether your happiness rises and falls based on his attention or whether it remains grounded. This steadiness communicates self-worth without a single word. It tells him that being with you would be an addition to your life, not the source of it. Many people believe that flexibility is the key to keeping someone interested, but inconsistency disguised as flexibility often comes from fear of loss. Saying yes when you want to say no, changing opinions to match his, or adjusting boundaries to avoid discomfort may seem accommodating, but it quietly erodes respect. A man watches whether you remain aligned with yourself even when it costs you approval. Consistency in standards tells him you know your value and are not negotiating it for temporary validation. Consistency also appears in emotional responses. If the same behavior from him receives different reactions depending on your mood or insecurity, it creates unpredictability. Unpredictability feels unsafe. When your reactions are stable and proportionate, he learns what to expect. This predictability builds trust. Trust is not built through grand gestures, but through repeated emotional reliability over time. Another important aspect of consistency is follow through. When you express a boundary, do you maintain it or abandon it once challenged? Men pay close attention to this. If you state what you want, but tolerate the opposite, the message received is that your words are flexible under pressure. When your actions align with your statements, your credibility increases. Credibility strengthens respect, and respect deepens attraction. Consistency does not mean rigidity. It does not mean being emotionally unavailable or inflexible. It means being clear and stable in your values while remaining emotionally open. A man senses when your openness comes from strength rather than need. Strength feels calm. It does not rush, chase, or prove. It simply remains. Over time, consistency shapes how a man invests. When he knows that your energy will not dramatically change based on circumstances, he feels safer investing emotionally. He does not feel the need to test constantly or pull away to regain control. Consistency reduces anxiety in the dynamic and allows connection to deepen naturally. Self-worth is not declared, it is demonstrated through repeated behavior. When you consistently choose what aligns with your values, even in small moments, it reinforces your internal confidence. That internal confidence radiates outward. A man may not be able to articulate why he respects you, but he feels it. He feels the difference between someone who knows who they are and someone who is still trying to be chosen. Consistency also protects you. When your standards and emotional responses remain steady, you are less likely to tolerate behavior that undermines your peace. This creates a natural filter. Those who cannot meet you at that level will slowly fall away, while those who can will step forward. You are no longer chasing alignment. You are allowing it to reveal itself. In the end, consistency is quiet power. It does not demand attention, explain itself, or seek approval. It simply exists, steady and unwavering, signaling confidence and self-worth in every interaction without ever needing to say it. Disrespect disguised as humor is one of the most common and revealing silent tests a man uses often without fully realizing it. A joke that lands just a little too sharply. A comment framed as teasing but carrying an edge or sarcasm that brushes against your boundaries is rarely accidental. In that moment, he is watching your response closely, not to see if you are fun or uptight, but to understand how you handle being slightly diminished. Humor becomes a safe cover for testing limits because it allows retreat if challenged and continuation if tolerated. Many people laugh along even when something feels off, convincing themselves they are being easygoing or mature. What actually happens is that discomfort is swallowed in the name of peace. A man registers this response as permission, not kindness. He learns that your boundaries are flexible when pressure is applied subtly. Over time, what began as a small joke can evolve into a pattern of dismissiveness because the initial signal told him it was acceptable. On the other extreme, reacting with visible anger or sharp defensiveness also fails the test. While it may stop the behavior in the moment, it introduces emotional volatility into the dynamic. He does not hear the boundary as much as he feels the intensity. Emotional escalation overshadows the message and shifts focus away from respect toward conflict. The test is not about whether you feel hurt, but about how you communicate self-respect under mild provocation. The most powerful response lies in calm correction. When you address the comment directly, but without hostility, It signals confidence and self-awareness. A simple, composed acknowledgement that the joke crossed a line communicates strength. It shows that you are not afraid to speak up, yet you are not destabilized by the moment. This balance tells a man that respect is non-negotiable, but drama is unnecessary. What makes these moments so important is that they set the emotional tone early. Men often decide how carefully they will treat someone based on these initial interactions. If disrespect is allowed in small doses, it grows. If it is calmly corrected, it usually stops. The response you choose becomes the rule book for future behavior. Without saying it out loud, you are teaching someone how to interact with you. There is also a deeper psychological layer to this test. Disguised disrespect checks whether your self-esteem is internal or dependent on approval. If your need to be liked outweighs your need to be respected, it will show. A man senses this imbalance quickly. He may not consciously think about it, but he feels whether you are protecting your dignity or sacrificing it for connection. These jokes also reveal emotional maturity on both sides. A man who respects boundaries will adjust once he sees them clearly. A man who continues after correction reveals more about himself than about you. In this way, the test works both ways. Your response not only passes or fails his evaluation, it also gives you valuable information about his character. Consistency matters here as well. Addressing one comment but ignoring the next creates mixed signals. When boundaries are enforced steadily, they become understood. When they are applied selectively, confusion arises. A man responds to patterns, not isolated moments. Calm, repeated self-respect builds an unspoken expectation of how you are to be treated. Disrespect disguised as humor thrives in ambiguity. Clarity removes its power. When you respond with grounded confidence, you take away the safety net of just joking and replace it with mutual awareness. The dynamic shifts from testing to relating. Attraction rooted in respect deepens while attraction built on tolerance fades. Ultimately, how you handle these subtle moments speaks volumes. You do not need to lecture, threaten, or withdraw. You simply show, through your response, that kindness does not require self-erasure and humor does not excuse disrespect. In that quiet moment of self-respect, you pass a test that many people never realize they are taking over giving before commitment is. One of the most overlooked ways people quietly lower their value in a relationship, often with good intentions and hopeful hearts. When a man observes how much you give before he has clearly invested, he is learning what it costs to have access to you. Time, emotional support, loyalty, availability, and forgiveness are all forms of currency. If these are offered freely and abundantly without structure, he unconsciously assigns them less value. This is not cruelty, it is human nature. What is earned is respected, and what is handed over too easily is often taken for granted. Many people believe that giving more will inspire commitment. They think understanding, patience, and emotional labor will make someone realize their worth. In reality, overgiving often removes the motivation to step up. When a man receives the benefits of a committed relationship without the responsibility of one, there is no urgency to change the situation. He feels comfortable where he is. Comfort without accountability rarely leads to growth. Men test this quietly by asking for more than they offer. More attention, more emotional availability, more flexibility, more sacrifice. They watch to see if you match their effort or exceed it. When you consistently give more than you receive, the imbalance becomes the norm. Your generosity turns into expectation, and expectations turn into entitlement. This dynamic slowly erodes mutual respect. Overgiving also blurs boundaries. When you prioritize someone else's needs above your own before trust and commitment are established, you send the message that your needs are secondary. A man absorbs this information emotionally, even if he never consciously acknowledges it. He learns that your limits are flexible and that access to you does not require consistency on his part. This creates a power imbalance that becomes harder to correct later. There is a difference between kindness and self-sacrifice. Kindness flows naturally and feels aligned. Self-sacrifice often feels anxious and driven by fear of loss. A man senses this difference. When giving comes from fear, it carries tension. When giving comes from abundance and mutual investment, it carries strength. Overgiving before commitment often stems from the desire to secure a place in someone's life, but true connection does not require bargaining. Pacing is a form of self-respect. Matching effort allows space for genuine interest to grow. When you allow someone to invest at their own pace, you give them the opportunity to choose you rather than simply accept what is offered. Choice creates ownership, and ownership deepens commitment. When everything is provided up front, there's nothing left to pursue. Men who are serious step up when they see that access is earned, not assumed. They respond to clarity and structure. When you hold back certain privileges until trust is built, you are not withholding love. You are honoring the process. This signals maturity and emotional intelligence. It shows that you understand the difference between potential and reality. Overgiving also costs you. It drains energy, creates resentment, and shifts focus away from your own growth. When your emotional resources are spent trying to maintain a connection that lacks balance, you lose parts of yourself. A healthy relationship should expand you, not deplete you. Recognizing this protects your peace as much as it protects your value. When you stop overgiving, you do not become cold or distant. You become selective and intentional. You give where effort meets effort, where interest meets interest, and where consistency meets consistency. This creates a natural filter. Those who were only comfortable with imbalance will drift away, and those capable of reciprocity will move closer. In the end, value is not proven by how much you give, but by how wisely you give. Commitment grows where effort is mutual and respect is earned. When you understand this, you no longer try to secure love through sacrifice. You allow it to develop through balance, patience, and self-respect. And that is where lasting connection truly begins. Self-respect is the quiet force that determines whether a man rises to meet you or slowly removes himself from your life. It is not expressed through ultimatums, threats, or dramatic exits. It shows up in the choices you make when no one is watching, and in the standards you uphold even when it feels uncomfortable. When a man interacts with you, he is constantly sensing how you see yourself. Your self-respect teaches him how seriously to take you long before he ever decides what role you will play in his life. Men respond to clarity. When your values are clear and your boundaries are steady, it creates a framework for how the connection can grow. Self-respect is not about controlling someone else's behavior. It is about deciding what behavior you allow access to you. A man notices whether you excuse inconsistency, tolerate disrespect, or compromise your peace for the sake of attention. Each time you choose alignment with yourself, you communicate strength without raising your voice. When self-respect is present, it challenges a man in a healthy way. It invites him to rise, to become more intentional, more consistent, more accountable. This challenge is not forced. It is implied. He feels it in the way you do not chase, beg, or over-explain. He senses it in the way you remain calm when things are uncertain. This kind of presence often awakens effort in a man who is capable of growth. At the same time, self-respect naturally exposes those who are not willing or able to meet you at that level. A man who benefits from imbalance will feel uncomfortable around someone who will not abandon themselves. He may pull away, become distant, or disappear altogether. This is not failure. This is clarity. Self-respect does not try to hold on to what does not align. It allows misalignment to reveal itself. One of the most powerful aspects of self-respect is consistency. It is easy to have standards when things are going well. It is harder to maintain them when emotions are involved. A man watches whether your boundaries collapse under pressure or remain intact. When your actions consistently match your values, your credibility grows. Credibility creates respect, and respect changes how someone treats you. Self-respect also changes how conflict is handled. You do not need to win arguments or prove points. You express yourself calmly and directly without fear of abandonment. When someone crosses a line, you address it without aggression and without self-betrayal. This emotional maturity signals that you value peace over chaos and dignity over drama. Another key element is willingness to walk away. This does not mean threatening to leave or testing someone back. It means being genuinely prepared to choose yourself if your standards are not met. A man feels the difference between someone who stays out of fear and someone who stays by choice. That difference changes everything. Choice creates respect. Fear creates control. When a man realizes that you will not lower yourself to keep him, he faces a decision. He can either rise by becoming more intentional and respectful, or he can step away because the dynamic no longer benefits him. Both outcomes serve you. Self-respect filters your connections without force or manipulation. This keynote is not about changing men. It is about honoring yourself so clearly that the right response becomes inevitable. When self-respect leads, you no longer worry about passing tests or proving worth. You become the standard by which behavior is measured. Men who can meet that standard will step forward with clarity and purpose. Men who cannot will fade away, leaving space for alignment, peace, and genuine connection to enter your life. And that is the true win that self-respect always delivers.